Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of BrillMedia.co.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today our guest is Tommy McCoy, co-founder of HaulShare Incorporated. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be or have an opportunity to connect with your audience.
Appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about HaulShare.
So HaulShare is a web marketplace that connects property managers with local haulers. So let's say you have something from your office or you have a community that you manage. We can connect you with the local hauler that'll come and fulfill and take your items from the property or wherever you're located at within about an hour, 30 minutes, an hour.
And how did you come across this type of business? Because it seems like a very niche business.
It's extremely niche. And it didn't always start out that way, I tell you. So I've been working in the waste management industry for my entire adult life. And my parents and my grandparents have owned waste management companies. So I literally grew up on the back of a truck, riding on my dad's lap. In the industry. So it was kind of a natural thing. Just like yourself, I've read a lot about your bio. After college, I needed work. I needed a job. So I kind of just went back and worked for my parents. And, over time would just notice some inefficiencies that I felt that I could either build a solution for or try to fix. And it kind of just evolved into the business. And, now we're about 2 years plus in now. And I'm doing well for ourselves.
And so with your family growing up in this world, tell me about the experience you had with your family. What was the setup there? Like in terms of the work that you were doing that you were privy to when you were a kid?
Oh, it was everything. So in my family, we have a saying, if you don't work, you don't eat. Right. So it started at everything, depending on, if I was in school or, what I was doing with regards to sports, I worked every single area in the business. Like I said, riding on the back of a truck, picking things up, driving trucks, doing customer service as I got older, getting fired from customer service as I got older, working in sales, making phone calls. Now I'm more of a consultant business development role for them, obviously because I'm running HaulShare full time. So various different things, and depending on who you ask, and all of my siblings have all worked for the business at some point in time. So that's kind of how I got started.
How old were you when you first when you realized, okay, I'm actually working? Because for me it was 14.
Yeah,
my mom took me to the dental lab that she worked for at 14, and I was folding boxes.
Right. As early as I would say maybe 9 or 10. Which is obviously, it doesn't sound right to say.
I know, right?
Right, working on it. But as early, obviously my parents would look after me. My dad would look after me when I was on the truck with them. And they wouldn't allow me to do things that were unsafe. But it would be things that, because I wanted to be so much like my dad. I looked up to my dad, and I wanted to be with him all the time. So whatever I could do, I would do. So I would probably maybe get myself into some trouble if it was today's time. But then back then, man, I loved it all. I wanted to be around my dad as much as I possibly could. And, I think when you said 14, is that more so all right, I'm getting paid to do it? Because I don't think I got paid to do any of this stuff until I was 17 or 18.
I was paid. So,
okay, yeah. So that's
my mom was an employee at a dental laboratory, the place where they make crowns and bridges. They manufacture the crowns and bridges for the dentist.
Okay.
To install in your mouth, right? So I had the unfortunate benefit of learning about root canals when I was a kid. I was I'm definitely right now as a 39-year-old grown man, I'm definitely afraid of root canals.
I don't blame you.
Right. And so, because I heard about it when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, that sounds horrendous.
Right.
Yeah, I worked. I worked a full 8-hour day. It was mind-numbing work to fold boxes that would eventually contain the the crown or bridge or whatever that the dentist would create, and or that the lab would create. And like the big highlight for me was like there was usually lunch, like open buffet lunch. I was like, all right, I'm working
Okay,
for that
so
lunch.
my experience wasn't that good. My dad, man, would work us to death. Wouldn't feed us properly. Like we'd have like just unfortunate lunch at some point in time. And, we kind of got the job done, but hanging out with my dad, hanging out with my brothers, at times with my cousins. So, we found fun doing it. Somehow we just found a way to kind of continue to get through it. And we also didn't have a choice at some points in time. So, it was interesting. It was interesting to say the least, but it definitely wasn't a pleasant experience. I know at the end of the week, he would tell us to split like $50 or something like that. And I think it was enough just to get us maybe like a toy or two, something like that.
Yeah, I probably made, I don't know, whatever the lowest hourly rate you could make when I was 14. I don't even know what year that was.
Right.
That's what I made.
But I can imagine, sorry to cut you off, but I can imagine that it felt like a lot of money at that point in time because it is.
The interesting part to me was like, all right, I was like, okay, well, I could work, I could earn some money. Like, holy cow, the world of opportunities really opened up, knowing that I had the control over the fact that I could earn money. So I remember when I was like 16 or 17, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a job working at Burger King. I never got the job. I don't know what happened. And I was like, all right, man, if I worked X amount of hours, I worked 20 hours a week, I could earn this much money, and holy cow, wouldn't that be great? And my mom kept me on the straight path. She was like, look, kid, you got to like go to school because
yeah,
that's when things become exponential. Like I could have been a manager at a Cold Stone Creamery at one point. My mom was like, don't do that. You got to go to school and get your degree or whatever.
Right.
So my mom definitely routed me that way.
Yeah, I think
it's really interesting.
Likewise. My parents did the same thing. They really just wanted us to grow up with a strong work ethic. But I think in my case, while it did give me a really strong work ethic that I struggle, and I'm not sure where this conversation is going to go, but I kind of struggle because I hold everybody that I work with and that works around me to this high standard. And I had to learn that, hey, dude, like not everybody has that type of work ethic. But what it taught me most importantly was what I did not want to do. Right. And
exactly. Me too.
Yeah. It taught me exactly what I didn't want to do, which is, kind of the reason why I built HaulShare the way it is. So.
Yeah. So tell us about, okay. So there's two things, right? So I worked at Universal Studios. It was tough work, man. Like it was at the Jurassic Cove Cafe. And that's where I learned like, okay, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. It was hard. Like it was like hot. We're slinging burgers or whatever. And like dealing with customer service. And, some people were supposed to be having fun, but they weren't. And the whole thing, I was like, man, I really just don't want to be standing for like 8 hours a day. That's one thing I don't want to be doing. So exactly like you, like I learned what I don't want to do, that I want to have different types of opportunities. So tell us about HaulShare. Like when did you create it? How did you grow? I'm really interested to learn about the things that allowed your company to grow. Was it relationships? Was it marketing? Was it other stuff? Like, tell us about that.
Sure. So we got started based on, we knew we had a model. So I'm not sure what year it was. It was maybe I graduated in 2013 from college. And I actually went to college to be a doctor. Like I wanted to be a primary care physician, and I also played football at the same time. So my grades weren't there, and they weren't terrible, but they didn't afford me the chance to go to the schools that I wanted to go to. So like you, I just had to get a job. And around that time, I was working. I think I was still, because during the winter break and during like summer break, I would come home and work for my parents. Right, that's what I would do. Outside of like training and working out. So I came home and I believe I was either doing some sort of customer service role or maybe some sort of biz dev role. And over time, I would get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls each week that requested this service. Because right now, to this day, if you call my parents' company, you have to, well, not anymore because they run all their business through HaulShare now. But before HaulShare existed, you had to call the company up, tell them what you had. You'd have to schedule out 3 days in advance. So if you missed your pickup for that day, no shot you're getting a service, right? And it could be similar to where you're at. You know, you're located in Los Angeles, correct? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it works there, but you may have to schedule out in advance. And then it comes, and maybe the service comes the following week. So I was getting hundreds of these calls, and they're saying, you know, can you guys speed the process up? Can you make it more efficient for us? Can you make it easier for us? And maybe could we do it online? All this stuff, and I kept getting the same complaint over and over and over again. So I didn't want to just make the assumption that this happened everywhere. So I called some friends of mine that worked in the industry, I worked at different companies, and they said, hey, we get the same amount, we get the same questions about at the same rate that we were getting them. Obviously, you know, at bigger companies, it happens more often. So, you know, I started taking little small data points and saying, okay, if this amount of people, and I would ask, okay, you know, if I built this product, would you use it? And they said, yeah. And I talked to a lot of property managers, and I asked them, I said, hey, you know, if I build this product for your customers, would you guys use it? And they said, yeah. So I started working on it. I went to an incubator program and won most innovative venture there. And it kind of just snowballed. You know, I found a co-founder, and he helped me build the program, the technology to facilitate the actual service. And I found haulers that are easy to convince if all they have to do is turn their phone on to get a job, and then boom, you know, we're kind of off to the races at that point.
So when you talk about junk removal or waste management, like, tell me some of the use cases. Like, who are your customers?
So
the types of businesses.
Yeah, the types of businesses that we work with. Like, our ideal customer would be a property management firm. Mm-hmm. Where, you know, we can go in, we can have a lunch and learn meeting, or we can have a sit down conversation with them. Now it's Zoom calls or Google Meets. And we basically just, you know, we pitch our value proposition to them, and we can leverage. What makes them such a great partner for us is because we can leverage their network, right? An ideal property manager has, you know, on average about 3 to 5 properties that they manage themselves. And the average size of a property manager firm is they employ about 10 property managers. So if you can imagine, just there's 50 properties that you have access to if you can, you know, build a business relationship with them. So
when are they calling you? They're calling you for what exactly? Like when someone moves out, or what?
Yeah, no. So they call us for various different reasons. And the most in the use case that we see most often is people will dump something that they're supposed to pay for to get rid of themselves out at the property, and they either leave or they're there and they don't know who did it, right? Because the property manager doesn't live there, and they don't work at the property in most cases. They work at the property management firm. They just go and they manage the actual property. So the board or whoever's at the property calls the property manager, and it's their job to call whoever to get the stuff removed. Right.
Got it. So the point is, someone will put a sofa out on the curb, mm-hmm. and it's unclear who did it. You can't really track it back, so you just gotta like take care of it because
take care of it. Right.
The city doesn't. The city, like, it's beyond what the city
exactly. Right. And here, so I'm located here in Northern Virginia, like right outside of DC, and the responsibility is completely on the property. Right. You know, very small public sector that provides service here. So most of it is private sector. And where we wanted to target the transaction is the moment that the property manager knows that there is something that needs to be removed on the property, what do they do next, right? And in most cases, they had to either call the trash company, who was almost impossible to get in contact with.
Right, it's the city.
And at the very best, they get service 2 to 3 days later, right? Or they call a junk removal company, who's going to, you know, they get there, the price may change, but they still have to call or email. With our web application, all they have to do is send us an address, an image if they have it, and a small description, and it's done.
Oh my gosh. And so how do you charge for that?
So we charge per truckload, right? So Again, the property manager, they're doing a lot more important things than just, you know, managing junk on a property, right? So, sure. And in most cases, they don't even know what it is. So they'll get an image or they'll get a description of what it looks like, and they'll just know where it's at. So they send us an image or they send us the details of the job. It takes literally less than 10 seconds to fill out the form on our application. We get the request. Our hauler network then decides, whoever is in the correct area at the time goes, fulfills the job. They send images. They let us know exactly what was there. They send us images of the truck, and they tell us, okay, based on what's in the truck, what they believe the load size was, and then we charge based on the load size.
The load size. So like the weight?
How much space it takes in the truck.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's fast. So then you have a network of people who are always, it's the Uber of hauling.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, I get it.
Right.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so when did you start the business?
We started in July of 2018.
Okay. And tell us about some milestones. Like what are the things that you're looking for as you're growing the business? I mean, it's like,
well, I've been fortunate enough to be around a really, really smart business people. My mentors are amazing. And I've also modeled behind what my parents did. And the most important element in our business, very similar to yours, because like I said, I know a lot about your background now, is relationship building.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about relationships, and especially with property managers, because with a property manager, they're looking to find quality vendors where there are a lot of good vendors. There are very small, great vendors. Right. And when they find a great vendor, they stick with them. So, again, initially, I just knew people in the industry from working in it, and it was my domain expertise because my parents have done it. And I knew so many property managers that I built great relationships over, the long term that, when I told you earlier, I said, hey, if I build it, will you use it? And we had initial milestone was the day we launched, we had a customer because of those relationships that we had built. And, over time, just, sowing more seeds with property managers and, being there for them and delivering quality service, obviously, helped us then reach. We were profitable in month 3 because our infrastructure is so small. We have a small IT infrastructure that we run our application on. And we take basically, how marketplaces work. We take a percentage of the actual order size. And, we hit 100K within, I believe, 12 months. So, we just continued to grow, but we weren't really focused on the growth. We were really just focused on the relationship building. Because if, if you can cultivate relationships and deliver quality service, the money's going to come. So we didn't really worry too much about scale. We just wanted to make sure that we had a product market fit and we knew exactly who to target and who to go to and to have a conversation with.
And what markets are you in? Or all across the U.S. or specific states?
Yeah, so we're still regional. We're still regional here to Northern Virginia, D.C., Maryland area. We haven't grown to the point of getting out yet, but we're still trying to build what our actual model looks like so that we can obviously maybe go after some venture capital funds so that we can scale it out to the rest of the country.
Only if you need it. If you can scale your business without, like, if you can use marketing and advertising to scale your business without the need of venture funds, then
110%. We would prefer not to be diluted, but again, speed is very important in our industry because it's sometimes not the best who gets to market; is who gets to market first. So we're considering everything. Again, hopefully we can just organically grow or then grow through sales and marketing, but it takes time, and those are decisions that we have to make down the road.
That's fascinating. There's a book that I'm listening to called Blitz Scaling, which I'm part of an entrepreneurs group. I'm trying to find it here, called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. And we had one of the authors, Chris Yeh, talk to us. And the book is called Blitz Scaling. I think the co-author is, Reid Hoffman.
Oh yeah, I know.
Co-founder of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Was Reid Hoffman at Y Combinator?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Partner at Greylock Partners.
Reid Hoffman. It sounds very familiar.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm not part of the venture world, so that's kind of like
Okay.
outside my where I know. But I'm looking at the title of the book, and that's what it says. And then Chris, is an author.
And
Co-author.
Blitz Scaling just basically explains, how people are scaling their businesses out.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is a lot of it is. I mean, I just started listening to it last night. A lot of it is like, how do you make almost irrational decisions in the pursuit of growth that can actually be good for your business and not just blowing money and time and effort.
Right.
Exactly what you said, almost like you really got it. Like being first is incredible.
Yeah.
Being second is decent. Being third is like you're not in the business anymore.
Right. Right. 100%. Right. And that's something that we worry about when we have to worry about, right now, because we're so new, we're still young, we have to just establish ourselves where we're at first. And I think, doing that the right way and actually taking to, because you can grow too fast too soon and you don't have the infrastructure behind you to support that. So that's something that, we think about ad nauseum, really, and, try to make key decisions when we have to make them.
Yeah, like one of the stories from the book that I was listening to is like Airbnb had a threat, and a threat was from a copycat firm in Europe who was basically copying successful American business models or businesses, and then basically creating it in Europe and then selling it back to the original company. And
Wow.
so they had approached this. I don't remember the names, but these two brothers approached Airbnb asking for 25% of the company. In exchange, you'll get like 400 different offices all across Europe and a fully developed travel market. And Airbnb decided not to take that deal, and instead, with I think like a year, created 9 of their own offices in Europe. And it talks about the mechanics of why they did that, why they didn't take the deal, and etc. Talking about dilution, talking about culture rift
Right.
within the two different organizations. But like fascinating stuff along the lines of like what I'm interested in hearing on this podcast. So
Right.
so
Well,
12
to
months.
me, it seems like they would have given Airbnb the blueprint that it's possible in Europe. So why would they even need to do that in the first place?
Right. Well, I mean, the challenge would be like you're kind of stuck between, I think, two bad decisions. One bad decision is you get extorted, a legal form of extortion
Right.
by folks who you're not interested in working with, and now you have to sell them a quarter of your business. Or they just go and take the model and make it run in Europe, and now you have a massive competitor in Europe. There's no good decision there.
Right. Right.
Tough. But yeah, you're right. Like it showed them they can do it.
Right. Right. I think
But they had one office
that's
at
what
the
they
time.
need.
At the time this happened, they had one office.
Wow.
So they're going from, hey, I don't know how I can barely manage one office to like now we're going to create 9 in Europe, and these other guys have hundreds. Like it's amazing.
Right. Right.
Okay, so 12 months into the business, June 2019, 100K. How has the last 6-7 months been treating you? I imagine it's good, right?
So I hate to say good just because of obviously the undertone of, what's happening right now in our society, not
I
just
just
here.
mean supply. You have people who are interested in working.
Supply has certainly been there. We haven't,
Right?
we've had some of our biggest months during the whole COVID pandemic because obviously more people are home, people are buying things at a higher rate, throwing things away. So it's been fantastic. We've honestly we've struggled at times to even fulfill the demand that we've seen. So it's been fantastic. It's been a interesting ride because, you want growth and, things are, that's the only reason why we're in business is to create a customer. But you got to be careful creating too many customers too fast, especially in our business, because you have to have a healthy marketplace, right? You have to have haulers that are able to fulfill the demand that you get from the other part of the marketplace. So creating that healthy environment is very, very important for having a successful marketplace business model.
So how are you? So right now you're attracting demand, customers, based on relationships.
Correct.
And word of mouth spreads, and people are coming at you like, "Hey, we need the service. What do you have for us in your area?" How do you attract haulers?
So very similar. We obviously have a sales funnel that we use. We have Facebook. We have Facebook ads and Google ads, and we're starting to do some LinkedIn ads where we're targeting local companies here. We're super focused locally because based on how we want to run our business, we want to make sure we're working with companies that work in the area, that their kids are raised here and they know how to treat people. So we have a very particular set of requirements that we want to have, that we need to have for our haulers that are on our platform. So it's still, early on, we're still doing things that don't scale just so that we can build the culture out first.
Mm-hmm.
And then, over time, beef up the marketing, beef up the advertising, so that, this whole process kind of works without us.
So
right?
tell us about
we're still very hands-on with everything that we're doing here.
So tell us about the advertising that you're doing. Are you like advertising to people who are already doing some sort of app-based work, like work on Uber and Lyft that might have a truck? Like, what are you doing?
No, it's different because initially, right, we wanted to have the business where it's like, hey, anybody with a pickup truck can come do business with HaulShare. It's a contractor essentially. But we realized really early on that it's expensive to market to those people because, one, we don't really know who they are. Right. And if you're doing dollars, and this better than anybody over at Real Media, is that if you're throwing dollars at something that you have no idea who they are or, who to target, you're basically burning cash. And that's what we were doing initially, trying to figure out who these people were. And then on top of that, once we acquired them, we had to train them. So very early on, we said, okay, this is getting way too expensive. It's going to put us out of business. So we decided to pivot a little bit. And now we only onboard hauling companies for two reasons. It's easier to find them digitally. And the second reason is we don't have to train them because they are currently in business doing the job that we need them to do for us.
That's interesting. I mean, are there that many hauling companies?
There are. There are a lot of hauling companies, but what's great about it is one hauling company can give you a lot of coverage because on average, the guys that we have, and we actually have women who run companies and actually do service for us as well, but they have multiple units. So they have 3 or 4 trucks. So one hauling company can, give you coverage for us about 115 miles.
So right now you're in search of, your acquisition strategy is really about finding hauling companies to work for. And what's the benefit for them, right? I mean, I can see the benefit for them. You're going to bring them business and they don't have to expend the energy and the time and money to bring their own business.
Right.
So that's almost like a lead generation service.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's like 100% right. So the benefit to them is, obviously it's, we're charging them 20%, right? If you kind of understand how marketplaces work, they are essentially, they answer their phone, that there is a free lead, but technically they're paying 20% for the free lead, right? They're
lead generation. It's not free. I mean, it's a lead generation.
Yeah, it's not free, right? Because they're paying for the actual work. But the benefit of is that we also have business growth seminars and business growth messaging that we give to them to help them in their own business. We don't require them to wear any of our logos or hats or anything like that. They have their full branding on their trucks. We also realized over time, after speaking to these folks for so long, that they do the business well, but they may not be great business people.
Sure.
So we help them and basically try to build their business as well as building ours. And we found that type of relationship has been fantastic for us because, just not just for us, but for them as well, because, just last week, I was talking to one of our haulers and, he told me he was able to take his wife and his kids on vacation for the first time in a really long time. Now, granted, it's, it wasn't like a real vacation because of COVID, but they went and just did something outside of their local area because of the business that we've been able to generate through HaulShare.
So what's interesting to me is that it actually kind of changes the perception that I have of the company. Not good or bad, but just like, you're not actually a waste management company. You're the infrastructure, you're the business services for a waste management company.
Correct.
You talk about yourself like that, or how do you generally talk about your business when you're pitching, like when you're pitching customers and when you're pitching haulers?
So it depends. It changes based on who you're talking to, right? So when we're sitting down, we're talking to a property management firm. We're pitching ourselves as an IT company, essentially, right? Because they have to use the application, the web application, in order to receive the service. So the conversation is very different there. The value proposition is very different there. But when we're talking to our haulers, we're talking to them and saying, hey, this is low-hanging fruit work that is going to be guaranteed because we're working with a very niche market, right? So we knew very early on that so we have two different types of customers, and we don't turn anyone away just because as an early stage company, money's great, right? Money's great. So we don't try to turn anyone away, but we learned early on that residential single family home customers, your one-off, families that just need to throw away a couch, they're great. And then they're terrible at the same time because you get a lot of complaints out of these people.
Sure.
They're also a lot more price sensitive. But when you're talking when you're going and talking with a business, right, a property management firm, all they care about is that the stuff is gone. They're not very price sensitive, and the payment is guaranteed.
It's almost like you're not a waste management company. You're a time management company.
Exactly right. So we pitch HaulShare to our property managers as a time management tool. You literally took the words out of our mouth.
Right. No, totally. That makes perfect sense. Different value proposition for business owners.
Correct.
So at what point did you realize, what was a period of time when you're like, all right, going to anyone with a truck is not the right thing. Going to hauling companies is the right thing. What was the equation there? Like,
it was pretty early on. I would say within the first month or so, we realized that it was going to be
really
a struggle for us. Yeah. And I believe in part we've grown so fast because our team is really strong at calling out each other's biases, right? Calling out each other's blind spots. And we're very big on idea meritocracy, where it's like, I don't care whose idea it is or where it comes from. If it's the best idea, we run with it, right? So we just try to make decisions and we try to course correct as quickly as we possibly can. And literally within about a month, maybe a little bit more, maybe a month and a half, we said, okay, it's not going to work. A little bit too difficult and too much friction this early on. So let's kind of go with something that works, that we believe would work a little bit faster. And it honestly worked right overnight at that point when we kind of changed our philosophy and our strategy up.
I really like that because, what's the funny thing that I've noticed about myself that is in stark contrast to what you just described. I'm the type of person who wants to go bull through the wall. I want to figure it out the way I wanted to figure it out. Whereas like I'm working, we have a creative partner named Brandy, and she's like, well, why don't we just change it? Just change it. I'm like, yeah, why don't we just change it? Like, that's so much easier to just than try to figure out the hard thing. Let's make it just easier. Change the game completely.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're spot on, but listen, I mean, you guys wouldn't be growing as fast as you're growing without that type of mentality either, right? Yeah. So you're doing something well. It's just in our case, because we're so early on, we have to be right? We have to make those hard decisions early on. And myself, I'm also, you mentioned in one of your podcasts, I'm not sure which one, I've listened to maybe 20 or 30 at this point.
I appreciate it.
You're risk averse.
Yeah.
At some point. And I am when it comes to my business. So we try to take as much data, but not overanalyze everything. Because, there's something I love that Aristotle once said. He said there's two worlds. There's a world where things cannot be other than they are. And if you're in that world, analyze it. right? Analyze it, measure it as much as you possibly can.
Right.
There's a
Gravity.
second world. Yeah, there's another world that things can be other than they are, right? And if you're working in that world, don't analyze it. Don't use all the data. So we really do take that approach, and we try to come up with unique decisions in unique ways to draw a decision and come up with a way to move.
I like that. I've never heard that quote. That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing because sometimes, man, like I'm not sure if you've ever had this situation happen to you, but you can get paralysis by overanalysis, right? And if you're always crunching the data, and if you think about it, the data is from the past. So if you think of data as being the only way that you can make a decision, if you look at it too hard, data will suggest that something new can't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So we're very aware, we're hyper aware of that. So, we try to find other means to make decisions, not just by crunching and looking at all the data.
What does the next few months look like for you next year? Are you going to max out the market? Are you going to expand to new markets?
So we have to continue to map, not expand, but we have to continue to drive home what we're doing here. We want to dominate our local market first. And I think all great businesses do that, at least initially, where they start local, they grow regional, then they obviously then go out national. So I think that's what we're going to try to do. What we have, we have our meetings here, and what we're really focused on is creating and keeping people within our red ropes of our business, right? And it's something that we've struggled with, at least early on, because we're trying to change the habits of people, right? And when you're doing that, they're kind of out of our ropes. They're kind of doing things that we don't prefer them to do. But again, we serve a customer and they're going to do what they want to do.
Oh yeah,
right?
Totally.
Not really what we want to do. So that's it. Continue to dominate our local market and build in ways where we can keep our customers in our ecosystem, so that we can get the best analytics. We can get we can keep them longer on our application, and basically continue to build a model out so that we know, all right, if it works here and we do the exact same thing in Denver or Philadelphia, that it will work out basically as we expect it to.
That's fascinating. Like, you're such a value-added resource for the companies that you serve, the haulers.
Yeah, but both sides. Our property managers, the property managers who work with us, absolutely love us, right? Because it not only makes their job easier, it keeps their communities cleaner, faster, right? And I'm not sure if man, but when you pull into a community and you see a bunch of stuff there, it's kind of just like, like it makes you feel uneasy, right? So, they love it because it's obviously a practical application where, they can go in and have things done in less than about a minute or so, and they don't have to think about it anymore.
Incredibly valuable. And
it's valuable for the community as well the haulers as well, is because, we can give them, and we enrich the communities that they live in, and that obviously helps them drive business for small businesses. So,
and the more data you get, the data that you collect as you grow, it would be incredibly valuable because you have purview over the whole market, whereas one hauler has purview over the business, the area, the experiences that they have. But you now become an analytics layer that serves the whole market. Like, you could sell a data product eventually.
No, that's what our plan is.
Right.
Like, we have a lot of things that we want to do, a lot of interesting things we want to do. But Robert, just as well as anyone else, like, you have to find what your model is first, right? Because you can't serve everyone, right? And that's why we're super niche. Again, we only really work with business clients. So,
Tommy McCoy, co-founder, HaulShare Inc. Thanks for being with us today. This was fascinating.